On the fateful night of June 9th, 1912, the peaceful town of Villisca, Iowa, was forever scarred by a gruesome and tragic event that would come to be known as the Villisca Axe Murders. In a small, close-knit community, 8 people, including 6 children, met a brutal and untimely death in their home. In this episode, I'll dive into the people involved, the incident itself, the heinous crime, the story that unfolded in its wake, and the various suspects who have been linked to the Villisca Axe Murders. If you're ready for a crazy American true crime tale shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions, stay put and listen until the end. You won't believe how this event transpired and the outcome of the investigation. Hi, I'm Hallow. Welcome to Freaky What. I love telling stories about mysteries, crime, paranormal, and anything else I think is freaky. I really appreciate you watching, and if you enjoy this channel, I hope you'll subscribe and watch my other stories. Now, let's get to it. Villisca, Iowa, situated in Montgomery County, was a quintessential American town in the early 20th century. Located in the hills of southwest Iowa, today Villisca is a small community of only about 1,500 people. But in the early 1900s, it was a bustling railroad town with around 2,500 people. It was the place where people knew their neighbors, and crime was uncommon. Until one Sunday in this serene setting, as the sun set over this community, Villisca was suddenly shaken to its core. On West 2nd Street sat a cozy 2-story white frame house. This was the residence of the Moore family. The Moores consisted of Josiah B. Moore, a well-known businessman in town, and his wife, Sarah Montgomery Moore. They lived with their 4 children, Herman, Mary Catherine, Arthur, and Paul, ages 11, 10, 7, and 5. The Moores were a respected and well-liked family in Villisca. They were regularly attending community events and local church gatherings. Josiah was the owner of the Moore Implement Company, a John Deere company franchise. He was a solid competitor with other area businesses, but was well-liked among his peers. Sarah and Josiah, or JB as she called him, were described as being friendly and helpful to their neighbors and kind to everyone they knew or met. They were the type of people that you might say never met a stranger. On Sunday, June 9th, 1912, the Moore family went to church and had their usual Sunday activities. In the evening, there was an annual event called the Children's Day Program, organized by Sarah Moore. That night, 9-year-old Catherine Moore asked her friends 12-year-old Lena Stellinger and her 7-year-old sister, Ina May, to sleep over at their house. The Stellingers were close neighbors with the Moores. The girls said yes, and after the program ended at church around 9:30 p.m., both families walked back home from church, arriving at the Moore house between 9:45 and 10 p.m. After some milk and cookies, the children were tucked in, and Sarah and JB went to bed. The following day, the sun rose over a peaceful Villisca, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Neighbors began coming out of their houses to do their daily chores and start their days, and nothing seemed off. One of the neighbors, Mary Peckham, noticed that the Moores weren't outside doing their usual chores, and the house was eerily quiet. The curtains were all drawn, which was unusual at the Moore house. Mary knocked on the door sometime between 7 and 8 a.m., but got no response. When she tried to open the door, she found it locked. Worried, she called Josiah's brother, Ross Moore. When Ross arrived, he knocked loudly on the door and shouted, trying to get someone inside to respond. He also tried to look through the windows, but every window looked like someone had covered every inch to prevent anyone from looking in. So he used his keys to get inside the house and quickly came back out to the porch, telling Mary Peckham to call the sheriff. What Ross discovered would stain the history of this small town forever. Every member of the Moore family, including the 2 young overnight guests, had been murdered with an axe while they were sleeping. Upstairs in the master bedroom, Josiah and Sarah had been brutally beaten in the head, and their bed was soaked in blood. In the nearby bedrooms upstairs, the Moore children, Herman, Mary Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, all suffered the same gruesome fate, all bludgeoned in the head while they slept. Downstairs in a guest room, Lena Stillinger and her sister Ina were also found dead. Every person was killed in the exact same manner. Villisca's city marshal, Hank Horton, arrived at the scene quickly, and other police officers followed suit. However, in the midst of this gruesome discovery, word spread rapidly through the town, and soon neighbors and curious onlookers flocked to the Moore house. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, with law enforcement struggling to maintain order. Shockingly, it's believed that as many as 100 curious onlookers wandered throughout the crime scene before the Villisca National Guard arrived around noon and finally sealed off the area. The investigation revealed that the 8 victims had been killed shortly after midnight. All of them, except for Lena Stillinger, were likely asleep when they were brutally murdered. Lena, the oldest of the victims at 12 years old, appeared to have tried to defend herself, bearing a defensive wound on her arm. The violence was so savage that the ceilings in the bedrooms of both the parents and the children had gouge marks from the axe's upswing. The murder weapon, an axe, was found in the guest bedroom, indicating that the Stillinger sisters were the last to be killed. The axe was covered in blood, but someone had attempted to wipe it clean. Notably, the axe belonged to Josiah Moore. All the curtains in the house had been drawn, and any windows without curtains had been covered with clothing. After killing the victims, the assailant covered their faces with bed linens or clothing. Additionally, investigators discovered a pan of bloody water on the kitchen table, along with a plate of uneaten food. Who would police soon arrest for this heinous crime? And who got put on trial? What really happened? Join me next time on part 2. Thank you so much for watching today, sharing, and commenting. I couldn't do this without you, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you again soon.